Hello and welcome to the show. Today we have with us Smriti Patnaik, Senior Research Fellow from the IDSA. Thank you for joining us. Smriti, I'd like to begin by asking that the process of this legal process that's happening in Bangladesh, now it's a very long drawn out process. Is it going to be over by 2014 as is expected, or is it going to continue for longer?
Actually, after the government came to power, the Awami League government, the process started after a year. So, I think it was delayed by a year. The government is expected to come out with a verdict by next year June, though it was supposed to come, the verdict was supposed to come by December this year. But I think the process is on, and one expects the verdict to come before the elections, because this is one of the pledges of Awami League, which had said that once if it is elected to power, it is going to try the people who were involved in war crimes in 1971.
See, the whole issue of war crimes, it requires a whole lot of witnesses. It kind of drains out a nation, to go back in history, trying to find witnesses. It is something that is extremely painful for a nation as a whole, and also it requires you to find witnesses who have seen that crime and to dig out people, some of them are dead and gone, some of them who don't want to come out and give a witness. How difficult has the process been to go through this war crimes process?
I think when when this trial started, when I said that it started after a year, when after the government assumed power in Dhaka, because all this time they have been involved in finding out the witnesses, preparing the case, because in such kind of criminal cases you need witness which can really stand the verdict or the judicial processes. And what happened in Bangladesh is that there are some people, one group of people like there was Sector Commander Forum, which was in fact instrumental in bringing this agenda to Awami League's manifesto. And I think this this process should have started much before, in the 1974, when the the Collaborator Act was Sheikh Mujib declared general amnesty, and the Collaborator Act was repealed by General Ziaur Rahman, who took over power after the 1975 coup. So, you see this should have started earlier, but nevertheless I think it is a good process that they have started the process now, because there is a lot of truth and reconciliation kind of thing which needs to happen in the in the life of a nation state. But in Bangladesh, if you meet the people there, you feel there is a lot of agony and lot of the this question of that everything can happen here and people don't get punished, and this sense of impunity was prevailing, that people who were involved in the war crime were never tried, they were given political pardon. So, therefore, I think it is necessary for the for the country to reconcile and to come in terms with what happened in 1971. So, I think it is a step forward, and as far as the witnesses are concerned, some of them have been daring, they have come up and they have given witness in the court. But yes, I do agree with you that many of them are dead and gone, and many of them are also not very clear that if suppose they give the verdict and tomorrow there is a change of the government, so they may be a victim of political vendetta by if Jamaat Islami comes to power, because most of this trial are one party which is actually whose political fortune may get hampered by this trial is the Jamaat Islami.
Exactly. I mean, the Jamaat in fact is saying along with the BNP is saying that it's the ruling party which is hand in glove in this, and the tribunal is answerable to and is working in cahoots with the ruling party. How valid is their blame game right now?
I think if you look at 2008 elections in December, the BNP initially kept quiet as far as the War Crime Tribunal was concerned. They really did not wanted to say and be seen as someone who is supporting the people who committed war crimes. So, it kept a distance, perhaps around 7 to 8 months, and later it started speaking against the process of the judiciary. But as far as Jamaat and BNP's the blame that Awami League is in hand in gloves in this trial and all, I think it is an agenda of Awami League, and it has been because that was the party which was leading the freedom struggle in 1971. And it was many of its supporters were victim of the harassment, and they were killed by in the hand of Al Badr and Al Shams, which was in fact led by the Jamaat Islami at that point of time. So, therefore, I think to some extent it is a very very political kind of statement which one sees in Bangladesh politics, because it is polarized. So, one political party if it does something, you always see the other political party keeps on blaming. So, I think on over this issue, at least I had expected, because there are also people who had fought for freedom and are part of the BNP now. So, I think BNP perhaps it would have been politically better if BNP would have supported Awami League on the issue of the war crime trials. Perhaps if they thought that this process actually is not something sustainable or not something which is above the board, perhaps they could have come up with some kind of suggestions. I find it very difficult to understand that what is the point in opposing. Are they opposing just because the Jamaat Islami, their alliance partner, is the victim of this trial? When I say victim of the trial, what I mean to say that they have been involved in the war crimes, some of them. So, therefore, this trial may be, they may think it is politically motivated, but I think, as I said before, on the birth of any nation, it's very important that there has to be a kind of truth and reconciliation kind of thing, where the communities need to get over the past and start a new life, and that is what has not happened in Bangladesh. And therefore, there is a lot of sense of grievance that their family members have been killed, their relatives have been killed, friends have been killed, and nothing has happened to them.
I agree with what you're saying, that every nation needs a kind of a closure, but it seems as if Bangladesh never got the closure. And, since it got independent, since it didn't get that closure, it just kind of moved on. Did that happen? Did it just kind of move on? Because, India and Pakistan got a sense of closure after partition happened. But Bangladesh never seemed to have got that closure after the birth of the nation, and that wound is still open until this war crimes issue is not settled. That closure is never going to come about. Is that the case?
I think so, because if you look at Bangladesh's creation, especially the liberation war, it's very difficult to meet anybody in Bangladesh who have not who have not gone through this process of the pain of losing a friend or a family member or a neighbor. So, because this entire country, somewhere or other, everybody is affected by a death of a somebody whom they are close to. So, therefore, I feel that it is extremely important for the country to come in terms of what happened in 1971 war, and also at the same time, when you and also, like you said, in the context of India and Pakistan, there was a kind of closure, but in the context of Bangladesh, I don't think there was a closure. There was political imperatives at that point of time when Mujib was in power. So, he thought perhaps he is the great leader of the nation, he is the father of the nation. So, therefore, he will start a kind of the moment you start saying that I pardon everyone and I would not like to go, I would not like to go and try the people who were involved in war crimes. He thought that he has brought a kind of closure. So, that is, he thought by doing this, there is a genuine sense of reconciliation. Okay, what has happened in the past, so let us build a new Bangladesh. You can't keep on targeting people, saying these people are collaborator and these people are freedom fighter. But unfortunately, that did not bring a closure, because Mujib was not alive for a long time. The coup happened in 1975 when Mujib and 22 members of his family were assassinated. And what happened actually after General Ziaur Rahman took over power is something which actually brought this sense of emotions rushing back to the as far as memory is concerned. The religious political parties which were banned, so many people thought, oh, somewhere or other people who had, majority of them who had collaborated with the Pakistan army, perhaps they have been banned, they can be politically active. So, the lifting of the ban on religious political parties actually brought these people to the political mainstream. So, those people who have at one point of time had opposed the creation of Bangladesh are right now the ruling partner of one of the political parties in Bangladesh. So, this brings a lot of because I have lived there for quite some time, and I have always felt that that pain of seeing that, oh, the killer is right now in power. So, that people could not take it that it can go to the extent when you are ruled by the people who are opposed to the very birth of the nation state.
You talk about polarization in Bangladeshi politics. So, brings me back to that question that if Khalida Zia is to come back to power, because that's what happens, it's either Sheikh Hasina
Yeah.
or Khalida Zia. So if Khalida Zia is to come back, what is the future of this tribunal? Is it, are the war crimes again going to go back into this cold storage and that's the end of it? We don't see any kind of closure to this?
I frankly speaking, I believe that this government is trying its best to bring it close to the war crime tribunal. Maybe the next phase, if there is a change of government, perhaps it will go to the process of the the next court, the High Court and the Supreme Court kind of thing. So there is a urgency, in the people, especially those people who are involved in this trial, the political coalition partner of Awami League itself, that they need to, at whatever cost, this needs to, the tribunal's trials should end when this government is in power, because they have seen in the past, trial of Bangabandhu, which happened, in the first, when Sheikh Hasina was in power in 1996, they could not do much, because when the BNP came to power, the entire thing, nothing happened, and some of the verdict came during the caretaker government's time. One has seen the jail verdict where those people who are powerful, they were not convicted. Those people who were not within the country, that's living somewhere in exile, those are the people who were convicted. So I asked one of my Bangladeshi friend, so he said that, well,
What's
this is
the
the
point?
easiest way,
Yeah.
because you convict the people who are not present in the country, because in any case that they cannot be
So that's what's,
given the sentence.
that's what is worrisome, is that ultimately when the sentencing is done, if it's done for people who are not there in living in Bangladesh, who are already dead and gone, what's the point of this tribunal ultimately? If they're sitting in, if they're sitting in Pakistan for that matter, because one always knows, these rapes which were committed and things like that, those are people, in the Pakistani army, who were in the Pakistani army at that point of time. So what's it going to serve? What purpose will it serve?
One thing is important about this war crime tribunal, it is not actually aiming at bringing into trial the Pakistan army personnel who were involved in committing crimes during the liberation war. It is only directed at the internal people who are still in Bangladesh. I actually mentioned in the last, when I was speaking, I was mentioning about those people who are staying abroad. That was in the case of Mujib killing case.
Yeah, that's
and
what
the
I
jail
want to
killing
ask
case.
about this case.
And in this case, most of the people are there. They are those people who are alleged to have committed war crime. Most of the Jamaat leaders are in jail.
Okay, what you're talking about is that investigations who have already been identified in the investigations, the trial on those people.
Yeah, those people
Okay.
are in jail, and
Yeah.
the trial is continuing, and that's
Okay.
what the Awami League government feels. But it feels that the trial should get over when the government is in power.
There are many lawyers in Bangladesh who are talking about international players involved in this. Who are these international players who are interfering in the tribunal, and how have they interfered in this whole process? Who are the international players actually?
Look, in Bangladesh politics, I have heard a lot of time, externalizing something which has much more domestic context and domestic implications, saying that this power is involved or that power is involved. Because the thing is that the fact the Bangladeshi themselves need to take into stock whether these crimes were committed or not, and whether these people who have been arrested for the alleged war crime, whether they had committed those crime or not, and those people who are giving witnesses, they are also Bangladeshis. And when the political party whom they elected with overwhelming majority, if Sheikh Hasina get rid of his alliances, still she has the majority 230. I think it is one of the largest victory which Awami League has got after the 1973 elections, which took place after the liberation.
So if she
therefore,
wants,
I
she
think
can go ahead.
I feel that this was in the manifesto, and who are the people who put this agenda in the manifesto? It is the Bangladeshis themselves. And if the Bangladeshis, knowing that this is part of the manifesto and war crime tribunal is going to happen if the Awami League is elected to voted to power, so therefore I think it is the Bangladeshis who have voted this government, and one of this agenda is this. So I really have not been able to understand that how can the domestic context and the fact that this government was voted and has his alliance partner has got 270 seats in the parliament, having a majority of the vote from the people of Bangladesh, how can they say that what it is doing is always internationally motivated and doesn't have a domestic dimension? It does have a domestic dimensions. There are people, like I said, you will not find a single person in Bangladesh whose family has not been affected by the liberation war, either by a killing of a family member or a killing of a neighbor or a killing of a friend.
So, do you think that a major reason why Sheikh Hasina was voted to power was because of this, that there were many people in Bangladesh who really wanted her to move ahead on this part of her, you know, what she promised in her manifesto, that she would bring about a closure? Do you think that that played a significant part of her election, and, you know, that she hasn't delivered on that will matter in the next election?
I frankly speaking feel, you know, there are other issues also, and when I say that this is one of the dominant issues, and this issue should be seen in the context of the what happened between 2001 to 2006. Like if you look at Bangladesh, if you look at the country, which is extremely moderate and the cultural values are very, very important, and where sometimes you keep on wondering that where does the boundary of the religion ends and the cultural boundary starts, because it's very overlapping kind of identity. Like they can be a Bengali, a nationalist, as well as a Muslim. So I didn't find a contradiction between these two identity, and it's very difficult actually to draw a line and say that this is Bengali and this is Muslim. So in this kind of context, when in between 2001 to 2006, you see, you know, some of the cultural symbols are being attacked. Some of the NGOs who have been working on the field of, you know, secular values, the baul music, and, you know, those which actually transcends the division of the religion. You know, those symbols have been attacked, like Lalon Fakir, you know, his statue was attacked. Of course, the attack happened during this government's regime by certain, you know,
and elements. You think that she isn't coming too strongly against these attacks?
No, I feel that, you know, in this context, I just wanted to add two things which were significant why the Awami League was voted. Number one, the 19th August bomb blast in 2005, where there was a series of bomb blasts, more than 250 bombs, which went off in almost all the districts except one. You know, in 63 districts out of 64, you had bomb blast. And it was subsequently followed by, suicide attacks on the judiciary and all. So, you know, this is something which made ordinary Bangladeshi to sit and look at what has gone wrong with the country, whose foundational principle was laid on the basis of secularism, on the basis of plurality. Even if, you know, you have the state, Islam as the state religion, even if you have other, you know, symbolic value of, you know, of the religion, but the country is very, very plural, you know, plural societal values, plural cultural values. So in this context, when the election comes and people were fed up with the terrorism, people were fed up with the fact that when the investigations were on during the caretaker government's time, they saw, you know, ties between the BNP and some of these elements. And interestingly, you know,
the Jamaat
tie
and the
between
others,
Jamaat and JMB and JMJB was not so clear. Whereas, you know, you see the BNP minister instigating and putting the JMJB to fight the Sarboharas in, you know, in the northern part of Bangladesh. So this is something which made, you know, people to sit up and think that, is this the kind of Bangladesh they are looking for? So therefore, in that context, the Awami League, when it brought up in the manifesto that they are going to try the war crime tribunal and all, it got overwhelming support because it is a centre left party. It is a party which brought, you know, which had propounded secularism as one of the foundational principles. And after the 15th Amendment Act, of course, you know, right now you have secularism and Bismillah Rahmanur Rahim existing with each other. But I think I take this change, though many people are critical that why the changes, you know, if the High Court had declared, the Supreme Court had declared the 5th Amendment as unconstitutional and subsequently declared, you know, the 8th Amendment as unconstitutional, why the government has not restored the foundational principle on which the Bangladesh was, you know, formed. I do feel that, you know, if you look at the social complexity of Bangladesh at this point of time, I don't think it is easy for Sheikh Hasina's government to bring those kind of changes which were there in the constitution of 1973. So therefore, I frankly speaking look at it that, you know, this is a party which actually was formed in the background of certain thing which was going on in Bangladesh. Apart from the war crime tribunal, these were the factor which made people of Bangladesh to vote overwhelmingly for Awami League.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, Smriti.
Thank you.